Ladies and gentlemen, life isn't defined by what happens to us. It's defined by how we respond to what happens. Every single day, situations come our way, opportunities, obstacles, surprises, setbacks. And here's the truth. Those events don't decide the quality of our lives. Our attitudes do. Think about it. Two people face the same challenge. One sees defeat, the other sees opportunity. One shuts down, the other grows stronger. Same event, two different outcomes because of attitude. Your attitude is the lens through which you interpret reality. When you wear the lens of negativity, everything looks darker. When you wear the lens of possibility, suddenly even problems look like stepping stones. Attitude shapes perception, and perception shapes reality. Every individual views the world not as it is, but as they are. Think about two people standing side by side, looking at the same situation. One sees disaster, the other sees opportunity. The situation hasn't changed, but the meaning attached to it has. That meaning is born from attitude. It is the internal filter through which we process life. What you believe about yourself, about others, about the future, creates the mental lens that either empowers you or imprisons you. If you wake up each morning expecting problems, setbacks, and disappointment, your mind becomes tuned to search for them, and inevitably you'll find them. But if you wake up expecting growth, learning, and possibility, your mind starts scanning the environment for opportunities and solutions. The external world remains the same, but the internal experience changes because perception shifts. This isn't just motivational talk, it is psychological truth. Human beings operate with what psychologists call a confirmation bias. Once you set an expectation, your mind actively seeks evidence to prove it right. That means your attitude programs your brain to interpret events in line with what you already believe. Someone with a negative attitude sees criticism as an attack, while someone with a positive attitude sees it as feedback and a chance to grow. Someone with a defeated attitude sees failure as the end, while someone with a strong attitude sees it as the beginning of reinvention. The same event, the same words, the same circumstances, yet two completely different lives because of the way perception is shaped. When you understand this, you realize that your world is not controlled by circumstances, but by interpretations. Imagine going through a storm. One person curses the rain, another celebrates it because the crops will grow. The storm didn't change, the perception did. Attitude has that much power. It can turn pain into strength, problems into solutions, and endings into beginnings. It doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending bad things don't happen. It means choosing to interpret reality in a way that serves you instead of destroys you. This is why some people keep moving forward when others quit. They don't necessarily have fewer challenges, but their perception keeps them in motion. A positive attitude doesn't erase difficulty, it reframes it. It asks different questions. Instead of asking, "Why me?" it asks, "What can I do about it?" Instead of saying, "This is impossible," it says, "What's another way?" The quality of those questions changes the direction of your life because the brain responds to the direction it is given. Think about your own experiences. Times when you thought something was unbearable, but later, when you changed how you looked at it, you realized it was a blessing in disguise. Maybe you lost an opportunity only to discover it led you to something better. Maybe a rejection opened the door to a new path. At first glance, it felt like failure, but through a different attitude, it became growth. The event didn't change, your perception of it did. This means the greatest tool you carry is not money, education, or talent. It is attitude. Because attitude governs perception, and perception governs how you use everything else. Two people with the same education and resources can live entirely different lives if one views challenges as roadblocks while the other views them as detours. The direction of your perception becomes the direction of your destiny. So, if you want to transform your life, don't start with external conditions. Start with attitude, adjust the lens, decide that every experience, whether joyful or painful, has a lesson. Decide that every difficulty carries within it a seed of possibility. Train your mind to interpret situations with courage, hope, and vision. When you shift your attitude, you don't just see the world differently, the world responds to you differently. Opportunities reveal themselves, relationships deepen, solutions appear. Life doesn't suddenly become easier, but it becomes richer because you are no longer trapped by negative perception. Attitude shapes perception, and when perception changes, your entire experience of life transforms. That is the power you carry every single day. Attitude influences behavior in ways most people underestimate. Behavior is not random, nor is it just a reaction to circumstances. It is the product of what you believe, how you feel, and the mindset you bring into a moment. If someone holds a defeated attitude, their behavior reflects hesitation, fear, or procrastination. They avoid risks, they hold back their energy, and they settle for less because their inner world has already convinced them they cannot win. On the other hand, a person with a confident and determined attitude naturally behaves with boldness. They step forward, they act decisively, and they persevere even when results don't appear immediately. The difference in outcome between these two types of people is not based on talent or opportunity, but on the inner attitude that directs outward behavior. Behavior is like the visible tip of an iceberg, while attitude is the massive unseen structure beneath the surface. What you do in public is only the expression of what you hold in private. That means every action you take, from the way you greet people to the way you chase your goals, has its root in attitude. A person with a negative outlook may walk into a room with their shoulders slouched, avoiding eye contact, giving off the signal that they are unapproachable. Another person with an empowering outlook may walk in with a smile, a firm handshake, radiating energy that draws people toward them. Same environment, different behaviors, all because of attitude. Consider performance in school, work, or sports. Skills matter, but skills without the right attitude often go unused. A student with a lazy attitude will not study with consistency even if they have intelligence. An employee with a victim mentality may resist change and miss growth opportunities even if they are capable. An athlete who believes winning is impossible will not put in the extra effort required during training. Yet when attitude shifts, behavior shifts. Suddenly the student studies harder, the employee embraces challenges, the athlete pushes through fatigue. None of this was sparked by a new talent appearing overnight. It was sparked by a change in attitude. Another way attitude influences behavior is through persistence. Everyone faces obstacles, but only those with the right mindset keep moving forward. Behavior in the face of difficulty reveals true attitude. Someone with a negative perspective might give up after one rejection, while someone with a positive, growth-oriented perspective will keep trying, refining their approach until they succeed. This persistence is not a personality trait. It is a reflection of attitude shaping consistent behavior. Even in everyday decisions, attitude drives behavior. If you believe life is unfair and stacked against you, you behave passively, waiting for someone else to fix things. If you believe life is full of possibilities, you behave actively, seeking opportunities, building connections, and creating progress. The results each person gets are drastically different, not because life favors one over the other, but because their attitudes guided their behaviors along very different paths. The beautiful part of this truth is that you don't have to wait for life to change your behavior. You only need to shift your attitude. The moment you decide to see yourself as capable, resilient, and resourceful, your behaviors automatically align with that vision. You take actions that match the belief. Over time, those actions build momentum, creating habits that shape destiny. It all begins with the invisible force of attitude influencing the visible expression of behavior. Attitude determines resilience, and resilience is the invisible strength that separates those who quit from those who keep moving until they succeed. Life will test everyone. No one escapes setbacks, failures, or disappointments. What makes the difference is not the presence of challenges, but the response to them. Resilience is the ability to bounce back, to rise after a fall, and to keep going despite hardship. That ability does not come from luck or circumstance, but from attitude. When your attitude is one of determination and hope, resilience becomes your natural response to difficulty. Think of two people facing the same crisis. One sees it as proof that life is against them, and they collapse into despair. The other sees it as a temporary obstacle and uses it as motivation to grow stronger. Both encounter pain, but only one develops resilience. The difference lies in attitude. If you expect life to be smooth, you are shattered when it isn't. If you accept that challenges are part of the journey, you approach them with courage instead of fear. Resilience is built in the mind before it is proven in action. A positive attitude creates inner dialogue that fuels persistence. This isn't the end. I can handle this. I will find a way. That inner dialogue shapes the choices you make. Instead of quitting, you adjust. Instead of breaking down, you rebuild. Every resilient person has carried this mindset into storms, not because the storms were easier for them, but because their attitudes refused to surrender. It's important to realize resilience doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means giving pain a purpose. A person with the right attitude looks at failure and asks, "What can I learn?" They look at rejection and say, "This is redirection." They look at loss and find gratitude in what remains. These interpretations don't erase the difficulty, but they empower the person to move forward with strength. Without this mindset, resilience cannot exist. Think about history's great achievers. Every one of them faced setbacks, sometimes massive ones. But what defined them was not the size of their challenge, it was the size of their resilience. That resilience was fueled by an unshakable attitude that refused to be defeated. The same is available to everyone today. The power to bounce back is not reserved for a few. It is the natural result of choosing an empowering attitude. Resilience is the ultimate proof that attitude controls life. You cannot stop storms from coming, but you can decide how you face them. You can allow them to drown you, or you can let them teach you how to swim stronger. Attitude decides which path you take. When you choose courage, gratitude, and determination, you turn every setback into a setup for growth. In this way, resilience is not just a response to life. It becomes a lifestyle built on the foundation of attitude. Attitude drives results in every area of life because results are not simply the product of circumstances or luck. They are the outcome of choices, actions, and persistence, all of which flow directly from attitude. When a person adopts a defeated or negative mindset, they create behaviors that sabotage their own progress. They delay action, they find excuses, they lower their standards, and they give up too early. With such an attitude, even opportunities that arrive at their doorstep slip away because they are not prepared to act boldly. On the other hand, someone who carries a strong, determined, and optimistic attitude naturally creates behaviors that produce results. They take initiative, they keep pushing despite obstacles, they adapt when things go wrong, and they maintain focus until the goal is achieved. The same external world offers both individuals chances, but only the one with the right attitude translates those chances into results. Consider how businesses are built. Many entrepreneurs face rejection, financial struggles, and repeated failures before success arrives. What separates those who ultimately succeed is not that the world gave them a better hand, but that their attitude pushed them to keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep moving forward. A negative attitude would have labeled each failure as proof of inadequacy, while a positive attitude treats each failure as feedback, as raw material for future success. The results, whether it's financial stability, growth, or innovation, are determined by the attitude that fuels persistence and creativity. Results are also shaped by the energy you bring into your efforts. A person with a pessimistic attitude often works with half-hearted effort because they secretly believe their actions won't matter. That lack of energy is reflected in the results. In contrast, someone with a committed and optimistic attitude pours themselves fully into their work, and that energy produces higher quality outcomes. The law is simple. The energy of your attitude multiplies into the quality of your results. Even in personal life, results mirror attitude. Someone with a grateful and growth-oriented mind will build stronger relationships because they invest in people with patience, respect, and care. Someone with a resentful or self-centered attitude will find their relationships weakening because their behavior pushes people away. The outcomes in both cases are not mysterious. They are logical extensions of the attitudes driving them. Another powerful truth is that results compound over time, and so does attitude. A negative attitude leads to poor results, which reinforce negativity, creating a downward spiral. A positive attitude, however, leads to small wins, which build confidence and momentum, creating an upward spiral. This compounding effect explains why some people seem to constantly grow while others remain stuck. It isn't fate. It is the consistent influence of attitude over time. In every pursuit, whether professional success, personal growth, or health and fitness, the principle remains the same. Attitude determines the level of effort, focus, and consistency you bring, and those factors ultimately decide the results. If you want greater results, the first place to look is your attitude, because results are simply the reflection of the mindset behind the actions. Attitude affects relationships more deeply than most people realize. Relationships are not only built on words and actions, but also on the energy and mindset behind them. A person who carries a positive and respectful attitude naturally attracts others. Their presence feels uplifting, their words encourage, and their actions build trust. In contrast, someone with a negative, critical, or self-centered attitude creates tension. Even if they speak kindly at times, the underlying negativity is sensed, and it creates distance. People respond not only to what you say, but to how you show up, and that is dictated by attitude. Consider the difference between two individuals entering a friendship. One approaches with openness, patience, and curiosity. Their attitude makes the other person feel valued, so the bond strengthens. The other approaches with suspicion, jealousy, or defensiveness. Even without speaking a word, their behavior reveals their inner state, making others guarded. Over time, one person builds a network of support and love, while the other feels isolated. The distinction is not luck, but the invisible influence of attitude shaping every interaction. In family dynamics, attitude plays a powerful role. A parent who carries stress and negativity may unintentionally project it onto their children, creating an atmosphere of tension. A parent with a nurturing, positive outlook creates a sense of safety and encouragement, giving their children the confidence to explore and grow. The same applies to partners in a relationship. When one holds a forgiving, patient, and optimistic attitude, conflicts become opportunities for understanding. When the opposite attitude dominates, conflicts escalate and weaken the bond. In professional environments, attitude can determine career growth. Colleagues and leaders are drawn to those who display cooperative, energetic, and solution-oriented attitudes. Such individuals are seen as assets, not just because of their skills, but because of the atmosphere they create. A negative attitude, however, makes collaboration difficult and closes doors to advancement, no matter how skilled the individual may be. This shows that relationships, whether personal or professional, are reflections of the mindset with which we approach them. Relationships thrive on trust and respect, and both are built or destroyed by attitude. An encouraging, grateful, and empathetic outlook naturally communicates appreciation. People feel heard and valued, so bonds deepen. A dismissive or arrogant attitude sends the opposite signal, and even if it is unintentional, it erodes connection over time. Attitude also determines resilience in relationships. Every bond faces challenges, misunderstandings, and disappointments. A positive mindset chooses to communicate, to forgive, and to rebuild. A negative mindset chooses to blame, withdraw, or give up. The strength and longevity of a relationship rest more on the attitudes of the people involved than on the absence of problems. Ultimately, the quality of your relationships is a mirror of the attitude you consistently bring into them. If you want stronger, deeper, and more fulfilling connections, it begins not with changing other people, but with transforming your own outlook. When your attitude radiates kindness, gratitude, and optimism, the people around you respond in kind and relationships flourish. Attitude is a choice, and that choice has the power to redefine an entire life. While you cannot control everything that happens in the world, you always have the ability to choose how you respond. This is the greatest freedom every human being possesses, the power to choose their attitude regardless of circumstances. Some people face difficulties and allow them to harden their hearts, while others face the same difficulties and use them as fuel to grow stronger. The difference lies not in the event, but in the choice of response. Every day offers countless moments where attitude is chosen. When you wake up, you can choose to focus on gratitude or complaints. When faced with criticism, you can choose to grow from it or become defensive. When a goal seems distant, you can choose persistence or resignation. Each choice, though small in the moment, accumulates into the overall direction of your life. The power of this truth is that no one can take it away from you. Circumstances may limit your options, people may try to discourage you, but the attitude you adopt belongs entirely to you. It cannot be stolen. That means no matter how challenging life becomes, you hold within you the ability to shape your experience through the mindset you select. History is filled with examples of individuals who chose empowering attitudes in the harshest conditions. Prisoners of war who maintained hope survived where others gave up. Innovators who faced endless rejection held to their vision until the world recognized their ideas. Ordinary people who chose courage in the face of tragedy became sources of inspiration to those around them. These examples prove that while external freedom can be taken, the freedom of attitude remains unshakable. Choosing your attitude is not about ignoring reality. It is about deciding which perspective will serve you best. If you choose defeat, you invite paralysis. If you choose possibility, you invite creativity. If you choose anger, you close doors. If you choose gratitude, you open them. Every outcome begins with that inner decision. The most empowering realization is that attitude can be trained. You may not control your first emotional reaction, but you can control what you settle into. With awareness and practice, you can build a habit of choosing perspectives that give you strength instead of weakness. Over time, this habit becomes your character, and your character becomes your destiny. When you embrace the truth that attitude is a choice, you reclaim responsibility for your life. You stop waiting for circumstances to change and start shaping your experience from within. This is the foundation of growth, success, and fulfillment, the daily, deliberate decision to choose an attitude that lifts you higher. Attitude shapes perception, and perception shapes reality. Two people can walk through the same event and come out with entirely different stories because their inner filter assigns meaning to what they see. Imagine someone facing failure. One person interprets it as the end of their journey, proof that they are incapable, and their perception becomes a wall that stops them from trying again. Another person looks at the same failure and perceives it as feedback, a necessary step in the learning process, and that perception becomes a bridge to new action. What changed was not the event itself, but the lens through which it was viewed. That lens is attitude. The way you see life is not purely objective. It is colored by your beliefs, your expectations, and your mindset. If your attitude is negative, your perception magnifies obstacles and minimizes possibilities. If your attitude is positive, your perception sees opportunities hidden inside problems, and that perspective directs your next move. Perception is powerful because it dictates emotions, and emotions drive decisions. A person with a pessimistic attitude perceives challenges as overwhelming, which produces fear and hesitation, leading to avoidance. A person with an empowering attitude perceives challenges as temporary hurdles, which produces determination, leading to action. Over time, these different perceptions compound into very different lives. This is why two people with the same background, the same education, and the same resources can end up with entirely different outcomes. The difference lies in how their attitudes shaped their perception of what was possible. Life is not lived in circumstances, but in interpretation. Consider a storm. One farmer curses the rain, seeing it as a threat to his plans. Another rejoices, knowing it will nourish the crops. The storm is the same, yet the experience is opposite. Similarly, one person in traffic might feel frustration and rage, while another uses the time to listen to an audiobook and learn something new. Their external world is identical, but their internal world transforms the experience. Attitude holds the brush, and perception paints the picture of reality. The science of psychology confirms this truth. Our minds are wired to filter billions of pieces of information, and what we notice is guided by what we expect to see. This phenomenon, known as selective perception, means that if you expect negativity, you will spot it everywhere. If you expect opportunity, you will find it in unexpected places. Attitude programs the filter, and the filter constructs your personal version of reality. This truth carries responsibility and power. If perception determines reality and attitude determines perception, then you are not merely a passive observer of life, but an active shaper of it. By choosing to cultivate gratitude, curiosity, and resilience, you alter the way your brain interprets events. Instead of seeing setbacks as unfair punishment, you begin to see them as setups for growth. Instead of perceiving criticism as attack, you see it as guidance. With each shift, life begins to feel different because you have changed the angle from which you are viewing it. Ultimately, attitude shapes perception, and perception directs action. How you see the world determines what you do in it. If you want to transform your reality, begin by transforming your attitude, because once the lens shifts, the world itself appears transformed. That is why mastering your attitude is the first step to mastering your life. Attitude influences behavior because what you believe internally becomes expressed externally through action. Behavior is not random. It is the visible extension of the invisible mindset. A person who holds a defeated attitude will behave passively, hesitant to take risks, hesitant to speak up, hesitant to pursue goals. Their behavior reflects the story they tell themselves about being powerless or incapable. In contrast, a person with a bold and confident attitude behaves differently. They walk with energy, they speak with conviction, and they act decisively. The difference is not that one has more talent, but that their inner world fuels their outer behavior. Everyday actions, even the smallest ones, reveal the influence of attitude. A person with an optimistic mindset smiles more often, greets people warmly, and attracts cooperation. Their behavior creates trust and goodwill. A person with a negative mindset might frown, speak harshly, or withdraw, unintentionally pushing others away. Over time, these behaviors create very different experiences, all rooted in the initial difference of attitude. In moments of challenge, the impact of attitude on behavior becomes even clearer. Someone who views difficulty through a pessimistic lens behaves by retreating or avoiding responsibility. They might quit too early or blame others. Meanwhile, someone with a resilient attitude behaves with persistence. They stay late, they try again, they find another strategy. These behaviors, multiplied across time, determine success or failure. It is not that one path was easier, it is that one attitude produced behaviors that kept momentum alive. Attitude also shapes how we handle relationships through behavior. A supportive attitude produces kind words and helpful actions that strengthen bonds. A selfish or hostile attitude produces criticism, neglect, or coldness that weakens them. The same applies to professional settings. Employees with proactive attitudes behave by contributing ideas and going the extra mile, while those with negative attitudes behave by doing the minimum and resisting growth. Leaders notice these patterns, and doors open or close based on behavior that is ultimately driven by attitude. What is most empowering is the realization that when you change your attitude, behavior changes almost automatically. A person who decides to adopt a growth mindset begins to behave by seeking feedback, trying new approaches, and investing in learning. A person who adopts gratitude behaves with appreciation and generosity. These behaviors not only improve personal results, but also influence the environment around them, inspiring others to act differently as well. In the end, behavior is the bridge between attitude and results. If you want different results, you must adopt an attitude that produces different behaviors. By shifting your inner beliefs and perspectives, you naturally shift how you show up in the world. Attitude influences behavior, and behavior shapes destiny. Attitude determines resilience because the strength to endure challenges is not found in external resources, but in internal perspective. Everyone faces hardship, loss, failure, rejection, disappointment. What separates those who rise from those who fall permanently is not the severity of the hardship, but the response to it. That response is dictated by attitude. A negative outlook interprets difficulty as the end, draining energy and hope. A positive outlook interprets difficulty as temporary and meaningful, fueling persistence and adaptation. The external situation may be harsh, but resilience is born in the mind before it is proven in action. Resilience is the ability to bounce back, and that ability is unlocked by the stories we tell ourselves. When faced with failure, someone with a victim mindset says, "This always happens to me, I can't win." That attitude kills resilience before it even begins. Someone with an empowering mindset says, "This is tough, but I will learn. This is not the end." That attitude generates the energy to keep going. In both cases, the event is the same, but the resilience displayed is drastically different. Resilience is not about denying pain. It is about giving pain a purpose. A person with the right attitude does not avoid struggle, but uses it as a teacher. They ask, "What is this here to show me? How can I use this to grow stronger?" This perspective does not erase hardship, but transforms it into fuel. Without this kind of mindset, resilience cannot exist, because resilience requires meaning. Throughout history, the most remarkable stories of human triumph came not from those with easy paths, but from those with unshakable attitudes. Innovators who failed countless times but pressed on, leaders who endured criticism and still stood strong, ordinary individuals who faced loss yet continued to love and give. Each of them demonstrated resilience because their attitudes refused to collapse. Everyday life offers countless opportunities to practice this truth. Losing a job can either become a permanent wound or the push toward a better path. Facing rejection can either destroy confidence or strengthen determination. Resilience is not dependent on avoiding setbacks, but on the mindset that interprets them. When you understand that attitude determines resilience, you reclaim control. You no longer fear challenges because you know you have the power to decide your response. You know that storms are inevitable, but defeat is optional. By choosing an attitude of courage, gratitude, and persistence, you become unbreakable. Challenges may bend you, but they will not break you, because resilience will always rise. Attitude drives results. Attitude influences behavior, attitude determines resilience, and attitude shapes perception. These truths form the foundation of human potential. Each one reminds us that the greatest power we carry is not control over circumstances, but control over how we choose to think, feel, and act. Life bends to the strength of our attitude, and in mastering it, we master the path to growth, fulfillment, and success. Attitude affects relationships because the way we think and feel within ourselves becomes the energy we bring to others. Every relationship, whether with family, friends, colleagues, or strangers, is shaped not just by words and actions, but by the mindset behind them. A person who carries a positive, supportive, and respectful attitude naturally attracts people. Their presence makes others feel safe, valued, and encouraged. In contrast, someone with a negative, critical, or self-centered attitude repels connection. Even without saying much, Their body language, tone, and energy communicate disinterest or hostility. People respond less to what we say and more to how we make them feel. And how we make them feel is always rooted in our attitude. In friendships, this truth becomes clear. A person who approaches others with kindness, patience, and openness creates bonds that grow deeper with time. Their friends trust them because their attitude communicates reliability and acceptance. On the other hand, a person who carries jealousy, resentment, or constant negativity into a friendship eventually drives others away. The same friendship that could have flourished collapses, not because of outside interference, but because of the attitude that poisoned the connection. What lives inside us eventually spills outward, and relationships are the most sensitive mirrors of that inner state. Family life is also deeply influenced by attitude. A parent who chooses patience and optimism during stressful times creates an environment where children feel secure and understood. That attitude shapes how children grow, teaching them resilience and love. A parent who constantly shows frustration, anger, or hopelessness creates an atmosphere of fear and insecurity, leaving lasting scars. In a partnership, the attitude of each person determines how conflicts are handled. A positive, forgiving attitude leads to problem solving and deeper intimacy, while a negative, blaming attitude creates distance and division. The challenges may be the same, but the relationship's future is determined by the mindset with which both people face them. In the workplace, attitude can build or break careers and teams. An employee who brings a cooperative and solution-oriented mindset becomes someone colleagues respect and leaders trust. Their positive attitude influences how they handle pressure, how they communicate, and how they support others, making them an asset to the team. Another employee with a resistant or cynical attitude might be equally skilled, but finds doors closing around them because their energy drains rather than uplifts. Professional relationships thrive not only on competence, but also on attitude, because people want to work with those who inspire confidence and positivity. Attitude affects relationships because it determines how we interpret and react to others' behavior. A person with an empathetic and generous mindset is quick to forgive, quick to understand, and quick to give others the benefit of the doubt. This sustains relationships even through misunderstandings. A person with a defensive or hostile mindset interprets the smallest issues as personal attacks, leading to unnecessary conflicts and broken connections. The difference is not in what was said or done, but in how the attitude filtered and responded to it. Strong relationships require resilience, and resilience in relationships is born from attitude. Every bond will face struggles, disappointments, or periods of distance. If one's attitude is rooted in patience, love, and commitment, those struggles become opportunities for growth. If one's attitude is rooted in blame, anger, or self-pity, those struggles become reasons to quit. The lasting quality of a relationship is therefore determined more by the mindset of the individuals than by the size of the problems they face. Ultimately, relationships reflect the energy we consistently bring to them. When you carry gratitude, kindness, and optimism within yourself, you radiate it outward, and people are drawn to you. When you carry bitterness, fear, or negativity, people withdraw, even if you don't realize why. This is why the most important work you can do for your relationships is not to change others, but to transform your own attitude. By choosing a mindset of empathy, patience, and positivity, you not only strengthen existing connections, but also attract new ones that are aligned with that energy. Life is lived in relationships, and relationships are built on attitude. If you want love, respect, and trust from others, begin by cultivating an inner world that radiates those qualities. Attitude affects relationships because it determines how you show up, how you communicate, and how you connect. Change your attitude, and you will change the quality of every relationship you have. Attitude is a choice, and that single truth holds the power to transform an entire life. Every day, we encounter circumstances that are outside of our control traffic. Weather, setbacks, people's behavior, and unexpected challenges. While we cannot always dictate these external factors, what we can absolutely dictate is how we respond to them. That response, chosen in the mind and carried in the heart, is what we call attitude. The beauty of this reality is that no matter what happens around you, you still hold the freedom to decide the meaning you attach to it and the state you will carry through it. Many people live as if attitude is something imposed upon them by circumstance. They believe if life is good, they will feel good, and if life is hard, they must feel bitter or defeated. But attitude is not automatic, it is chosen. Two people can face the same problem. One chooses frustration and hopelessness, the other chooses calm determination. Their outcomes will be very different, not because the problem treated them differently, but because they made different choices in attitude. The first allowed circumstances to dictate their state, while the second exercised the freedom to control their inner world. This choice is not always easy, but it is always available. In moments of disappointment, anger may arise naturally, but you can choose whether to dwell in it or release it. In moments of failure, discouragement may knock at your door, but you can choose whether to let it stay or replace it with resolve. Even in pain, you can choose whether to see only suffering or to search for meaning. Each of these choices compounds over time into the direction of your life. Attitude is like the steering wheel of a car. You may not control the road, but you control where you point yourself on that road. The greatest figures in history who endured unimaginable trials revealed the truth of this principle. Those who chose hope in dark times inspired others and eventually found light. Those who chose courage in fearsome circumstances became leaders. Their external conditions could not take away their ability to choose an empowering response. That same ability rests in every human being today. You may not choose what happens, but you always choose how you will see it and what you will do about it. What makes this idea so powerful is that it places responsibility back into your hands. If attitude is a choice, then you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a creator of experience. You cannot blame the world, luck, or other people for the way you feel or act. You may be influenced by them, but the final decision always belongs to you. This awareness is liberating because it means change is possible at any moment. The instant you decide to choose gratitude instead of resentment, courage instead of fear, or persistence instead of surrender, your life begins to shift. Of course, attitude must be practiced like a muscle. The first reaction you have may not always be your choice, but the second one can be. With awareness, you can interrupt negative patterns and replace them with empowering ones. Over time, the repeated act of choosing positivity, resilience, and gratitude becomes second nature. What once felt difficult becomes natural, and what once felt out of your control becomes your strength. Attitude is the most consistent decision you make, and it is the one that shapes every other outcome in your life. The quality of your relationships, the results you achieve, the resilience you show, the perception you hold, and the behaviors you act out, all of it flows from the daily choice of attitude. Life will never stop testing you, but with the right mindset, you will never stop growing. When you embrace that attitude is a choice, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for life to be easier and start choosing to be stronger. And in that choice, you discover the secret that while circumstances may shape the path, it is your attitude that determines the destination.